A local investigation here at home. 11 Alive's been working on this. Savannah Levins is joining me now. It comes as the GBI now confirms it is investigating a development authority in Putnam County amid a big development deal. So what have you been able to find about this?
Well, so the GBI is investigating this at the request of the sheriff there in Putnam County, and they're looking into allegations that this unelected board of volunteers, the Putnam Development Authority, is overstepping by pushing through millions of dollars in tax abatements for this housing project, despite the local governing tax authority, the Board of Commissioners, unanimously opposing it and saying, well, wait a minute, what are we doing here? This board of unelected volunteers is doing it anyway. So that's kind of the crux of this investigation.
How do they get this power?
Good question. Why don't we watch the story and we'll get some context.
All right.
A proposed housing development along Harmony Road could add hundreds of new rental homes to Putnam County.
People start getting on it.
But critics say it could come at the expense of taxpayers and schools.
Most of us thought, wrongly as it turns out, that the Development Authority would be legally restricted to bringing in jobs and businesses, not subsidizing for-profit housing builders and renters.
The project is tied to a deal the Putnam Development Authority, or PDA, approved, allowing the developer to avoid paying full property taxes, an estimated savings of around $6 to $8 million. Supporters say it will spur growth and provide much-needed housing. Records show the project has evolved from a mixed-use plan to mostly rental housing, with projected jobs falling from 78 to just 3 over 15 years, according to assessments 11 Alive reviewed.
We are just not getting value for what we are giving them.
County Commissioner Stephen Hersey and Board of Education Chair Dr. Stephen Weiner say their boards both unanimously oppose the tax breaks.
It makes no sense to add that burden to current taxpayers and current systems to benefit a private company's profiting margin.
Despite that opposition, the PDA pushed the deal forward, raising concerns from citizens like Jennifer Ray and Aaron Olson.
Both boards adamantly said, no, we don't want to do this. This is not a good idea. And then the PDA did it anyway.
Because the PDA is a constitutional authority, it does not need approval from county commissioners to move forward. Starting in the 1950s, Georgia law allowed counties and cities to give development authorities powers written directly into the Constitution, meaning they don't generally require the consent of local governing authorities to provide tax incentives.
Like, you want to give a free ride to all these people, and there's no way you can do that without taxing every other property owner in in Putnam County.
Georgia prohibited the formation of new constitutional authorities in 1983, but 94 formed in the state before then still exist today. The PDA is one of them. The members are part-time, unelected volunteers.
They are also unvetted. And that, to me, is a problem.
Is the vetting not the job of the Board of Commissioners who appoints them?
We never do that. But you have to remember that the Putnam Development Authority was basically non-functioning. We never thought that it would take on a project of magnitude of $100 million.
I reached out to the members of the PDA multiple times, calling, emailing, even showing up in person. No one's here and no one's agreed to speak with us. An attorney for PDA Chairman Walt Rocker III declined to be interviewed, but called the accusations of overreach politically motivated and meritless. Olson and Ray have both, in fact, expressed their intent to run for county commission seats in May.
Am I politically motivated to come in and find out what's going on in Putnam County? Absolutely. I want to know where our money's going.
The debate has grown far beyond Harmony Road, with county leaders and citizens now calling for Georgia lawmakers to step in.
These PDAs are out of control.
They are. They definitely need some major bumpers.
Interesting. Well, you answered my question. Did you learn a lot about development authorities in here?
I did. You know, when these citizens came to us with this story idea, they said, you know, this development authority is pushing through this large tax abatement despite opposition from commissioners. And I thought I misheard them. I said, I've never heard of that happening.
Yeah.
In fact, most of my sources who are, you know, in the development space say they've never heard of it either. So how were they allowed to do that? And that's kind of what opened up this investigation into these constitutional authorities and how many of them are in our state. I published an article on 11alive.com and included some of them. They include Ackworth, Butts County, Coweta, Cumming, Dade County, Marietta, Smyrna, Gainesville, Hall County. So many across Georgia have these constitutional powers that many citizens might not even realize. And so now citizens are saying, really encouraging others to keep a close eye on their constitutional authorities and what moves these volunteers are making.
Interesting. How many folks are sitting on this board?
Well, interestingly, one of them just resigned amid this investigation. There are, I believe, 4 remaining now. And, the Board of Commissioners talked about, well, can we overturn this board or can we replace the members? And because it's a constitutional authority, it would take an act of the general legislature in the state of Georgia to either remove any of those members or dissolve it altogether. And you know how hard it can be to get anything passed in the legislature, let alone for one county.
Well, all right, you mentioned an investigation. What's the GBI looking into exactly?
So, the sheriff requested that the GBI investigate. My sources say that there were potentially some concerns with the sheriff having some familial relation with someone on the Development Authority. So it sounds like they got the GBI involved just to reduce any appearance of conflict of interest. The GBI wouldn't tell me much more other than they are investigating. The Attorney General's office actually recently sent a letter I just confirmed this last night, to the PDA about open records violation accusations, that they're holding their meetings in these tiny rooms that only 12 people fit in. And so the Attorney General requested a formal response in 10 days. They've got 3 days left for that, and they haven't responded yet. So we'll see what comes of that.
So they are subject to the same sort of FOIA laws?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But again, keep in mind they're part-time. They have full-time jobs elsewhere. So critics say that kind of board with all of this power to utilize taxpayer money, being part-time volunteers who have other day jobs, could be rife for corruption.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And they have to publicize their meetings before they happen?
They do. But again, these are not elected officials. So, and I'm not even saying anything untoward is going on here, but they're learning as part-time citizens and volunteers what this means and how to, but yeah, they are, under the same laws as any other authority. They're called an authority because they have it.
All right. What outstanding questions do you have in the next few months?
We have another story that's going to air Thursday at 6 p.m. I think, we ended that piece talking about how citizens are calling for legislative efforts to address this. They're worried that this, could cause a ripple effect in other counties across the state with these development boards having too much power in the hands of unelected people. So I actually interviewed a couple legislators about this and their thoughts. They were also equally shocked that these even existed. Yeah. So those are some interesting conversations coming up on Thursday.
All right. We'll be looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Savannah, thanks.